If not, make sure your hair looks okay, like mine, and we'll get you right into the field. We'll
Mm-hmm.
get rolling here. I will ask you to
Diana
mute yourself
Romualdo.
if you don't want to be heard. All right, I think we got it. Cool, cool. Well, this is get together number 4 on our Zero to Hero Portals program. Today, again, we're gonna look into branding strategies for portals. This is not really the law per se. So it's essentially stuff that I myself use, tools that I use, strategy that I use to um, to go about branding. I mean, for me, it works. Again, it's not the law by any shape or form. It may help you. You may like it. You may hate it. But in any case, it's my take into doing things that potentially makes your life easier. All right. So when I look at branding portals, I look at two main areas per se. The first one is the structure of the site, and the second one is color scheme. Okay. So, and what I mean by structure of the site is the way that sections of the site are laid out. You know, whether you have navigation bar on the right or on the left, whether the navigation menu is at the top or a little bit lower under the main header of the page, so on and so forth. So by assessing those things, it will help you choose what do you do with portals. Okay, so let's have a look at a portal that I have in place, and I think the majority of you has already seen it in the past. So we're gonna have a look at this example here just to talk about structure of portals. When you install portals, right from the get-go, your portals will have the menu bar straight at the top. So in this example, this is very close to vanilla. Navigation is at the very top. Okay. On my sample, the one that I use for demos, you'll notice that my navigation bar is a little bit down to the bottom here. All right. And the way you can control it is essentially by playing with two entries associated to the portal, the website record. So if I go to my website record, you see that I have the header template here and the footer template. If I remove this guy and hit save, and if I log in to refresh the cache, you see that my header will look a little different after that. The header area of my site will look a lot like the vanilla version of Bootstrap, the Bootstrap package. Come on. Maybe I should kill my video for a second. Yeah. See if this goes any faster. So let me refresh the cashier services about clear cache. Okay, come on. So you see now that my header looks a lot different than the original website, than what this looks like. Okay. Uh, yeah, you may not see the difference. So let me give another example here. Uh, come on. Yes. So this is a good example. So the default site has the header all the way up, and it's got color, and some of the configuration like the search button is part of the header. By removing that template, you get this particular view. Very vanilla. If I had search here, we would see that search. And this is closer to what Bootstrap looks like out of the box. So if your site has this particular setup, then I'd say clear the header template and you're good to go. If not, you can bring back the header template and your site will look, it looks a little bit more modern per se, but again, the strategy will depend on what your customer wants the site to look like. So again, if you want a more of the vanilla Bootstrap, this is your friend here. If not, you can put back the template. And we're gonna have a look at the template shortly here. The same for footer. So there is a template for footer. If you don't want that, you can clear. And again, the footer will be very vanilla on your site. Oh, come on. All right, my header's back. Close this guy. But my footer is different. You see how vanilla this is now? Again, if I want the template, I can type it again and re-add. Let's say that you want to customize the footer itself, the one that comes shipped out of the box. So you can navigate to your website record, then click on the footer, and then you can make changes here as to what you want it to look like if you are if you're okay to do some HTML. Okay, what it's doing essentially on this example, it's loading the footer and then it's loading a content snippet called footer. So we can navigate to content snippets and then look for that footer content snippet. Content snippet can be of two types. It can be a text or HTML. This is the HTML version. I can click on the HTML to see the HTML instruction. And you see that there is just a little bit of content associated with the footer, with Liquid as well. Liquid is just picking up now date, today's date, and looking at the year, and then presenting that to the page. So that's one way to customize. If you would like to customize the header, not the Bootstrap vanilla one, but the one based on the template, you can click here, and then there will be quite a bit for you to do here if you want to customize. Essentially, this header is looking at an entity called web links, and then getting all the data related to navigation and menus and driving the presentation. You notice that there is another snippet here for the mobile header. So when the page is displayed on a mobile device, you notice that the header is a bit different. Okay, that's what that particular liquid tag is doing. But on and on, this is how you go about customizing or assessing the structure. Now, last week we talked with Mary, had a question around content of the page, and we clicked around the website homepage, and we are looking at different code content at the bottom. So essentially, what this editor is doing is, as we click in areas of the page, it is displaying the template or page copy content associated with that particular web page. I'll go slow here, make sure that everybody understands what I mean by that. All right, so Mary had a question on if I wanted to copy the content of a page from one page entry to another, how do I do that? So at first we clicked here, and then we looked at the code content, and we saw all of this stuff. And clearly, this is not the content of the page itself. This is actually showing the header template that's being used to drive the navigation menu. The same as if I were to go back to the backend, go to websites, then open the website record, and if I click header, you see this guy is what's being displayed here. All right. If I click on the body of the page over here, and I click see code, I guess I didn't click in the right place. So this guy, yeah. And I click source code. Now I'm seeing the content of the page. This is what's being saved to the copy field in the localized page record for this web page. Okay, so let me move this out of the way. So the same for the footer. If I close this and I scroll all the way down to the footer of my website, and I click here, and I click source code editor, this is the template for the footer. I found this on the web. Oh, my Siri is going crazy here. So this is how essentially you can navigate between parts of the site. You can do it through the back end or the front end. Either way works. If you feel more safe navigating straight to the area that you want, you do back end, but know that you're going to have to use clear cache to update your changes back to the front end of the website. You can use Studio and navigate to the areas. Just make sure you're clicking in the right place before you copy and paste your changes. The Studio doesn't have a way to undo very well, so whatever is done, and that's it. You know, so just be careful there. But you know, the editor will show which area you have selected. So for example, here I can see that footer is selected. If I click outside, I can see that a section within the body of the page is selected. So I'm safe to look at the source code. Okay. Same for header. So if I click on the header, it will highlight that I've selected it. All right. So second part of this presentation is it'll be a bit more code intense if you consider HTML to be code, but it is one thing that I do, and a strategy that I use when I'm branding websites. Okay, so the second part is color scheme. So your customer will give you a template, or will say, look at my corporate page, and kind of drive how you develop your this portal based on what my page looks like. Okay, so the first exercise is to see what the customer wants, and then to look for templates that will bring you closer to that particular result. So if my customer is MasterCard, I'll go to a page that they refer as being what they want to use in terms of color scheme and field disposition and whatnot. Then I play with the developer tools within the browser, with a browser that I use. So I change between Chrome and Edge, the new Edge, a lot, but they both work the same when it comes to developer tools. So this is what I do. You can hit F12 on any browser and you get a screen like this. Okay, and you can then select the areas that you want to play with. So we're going to start with the header. And what I want to know is, what is the color used for the header? So let me click here again. So when I hover over, you can see the color is 222221. So this is the color I am going to use. Now I can start from scratch and build my experience, or if I don't have a whole lot of time to finish a project, especially if it's an MVP or prototype, what I do is I go back to Studio and I look for, first and foremost, themes that will bring me closer to that experience. I'll look here and see what is the closest uh, preset theme that will give me the results that I want. And if I can't find one, I can build my custom theme, or better yet, I can go to boot swatch version 3 and I can look for the bootstrap version that will bring me closer to where I need to be. So let's assume that this guy, Cosmo, is the one that I have assessed being the closest to MasterCard's website. You notice here that I have two navigation bar. One is the default, the other one is the inverse. Okay, really important to assess the two and then go back to the portal and see what portal uses. Because if we want a black and portal is using inverse, we'll get blue if we were to download that bootstrap template. So I need to continue to search for one that gives me the black navigation bar. Let's see if this one does. No, I get green. Come on. Actually, no, this one was right. Yeah, hold on. So yeah, black. No, this is not correct. So black is default. So let's keep on going. All right, let's see. Readable. No, they're both white. Green and black. Come on. Give me one at least. No. All right. Let's go stale. So black and gray. Well, let's make our own then. All right. So I haven't found any that really matches what I need. Maybe cerulean. Nah, that's blue and blue. All right. So if you are to build your own, what do you want to do on that particular scenario is you want to color this class from white to black, right? So I can highlight the class and then go to the CSS area here. And as you can see, I have already a entry that deals with background color. So I can test it and see what it looks like. The color that we found from MasterCard was 222221. All right, so we got our black color here on our CSS. So what I can do is I can copy this entry, go back to Studio. Then in here, I can look at, I think I had enabled this before. I can look at the CSS that's available on my site. The strategy I use is always, if I have to make a whole lot of CSS changes, strategy I use is to create a CSS file for my customizations. All right. So I can go ahead here and come on. Yeah. Upload CSS file. I'm going to throw this guy back in here. Call it Power Platform CSS. You can start with one that's blank, that doesn't have any content. Okay, click on it. Here's the file that I have. I will comment stuff that I had before. In your scenario, you didn't have anything to start with, right? So I am going to throw in this particular CSS entry. Save. It's saved. I can refresh my screen. And now my menu bar should be white. I mean, like. All right, Keegan has hand raised. Go for it.
Thank you. So I've got a couple of questions, but just stop me if you need to. So the first one was the structure of the site part. So you showed us how to do the HTML to amend the header and the footer. But for newbies out there, what are the limitations of trying to edit that in the Studio Designer as opposed to going into HTML? I expect there must be limitations doing that.
I mean, the core limitation is breaking this code, right? So it's recursively looking at an entity called web links, and then it finds the higher level menus and then the children and starts to build that scenario. So the first limitation, if you will, would be breaking what's already there, right? So you need to know um, how to play around, especially with the program instructions here in what it's doing, right? Now, if your customization is in the area of adding more menus, um, then you don't really need to mess with this template. You can just create pages or play with this particular entity here called web link sets. That's what drives the menu. This is your core menu default. The footer menu is what's presented down here, although I don't have anything going on, but that's what drives. So if you were to get in here and add your entries and then go back and clear the cache, good to go. Right?
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It was a very quick question for the next one. The bootswatch.com/3, they all look to have different font types on all the examples. If you use one of those as a theme, is it going to overwrite all of the font types that you've already got on the site? Yeah.
It will. It will. And that definition is part of the CSS. So if you click to download, you'd see fonts right from the first line here. Well, this one's pretty default, so it's not adding in new fonts.
Cool.
But maybe you should make it a little bigger. But in case that if you are using custom font, I think there is an example here that uses custom. Maybe this Cosmo guy does. I don't know. Oh, right here. So it's just referencing. Let me make it bigger. It's referencing the Google API fonts.
Ah, cool. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. You don't really need to add anything in this particular example. Granted that, Google will never go out of business. I sure hope, but you don't have to bring the font to your site if you don't want to.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So yeah, what I was saying is if you play with the web link set, you can add the menus that you want, and then it will show up on the site. One thing that Studio does a little different than this particular front-facing editing tool is that when you create a page through Studio, it will always create a menu. So you have to somehow, you add the page, then you have to remove the menu from the navigation. The way that the front editing tool plays with menu is that it lets you edit the menu options right from the editor, from the control itself. So you can play with stuff that you want to display or hide. You can come here and say, well, this is pointing to a web page, but I wanted to point it to an external URL. I want to open a new tab instead of changing the navigation of the current page. So you have a little bit more options in this scenario, whereas in Studio, as soon as you create a page, it will create the menu for you. That's why my menu bar doesn't really look that great, because I have a lot of sample code, and it's showing everything here. Okay, so I have the color for MasterCard. Maybe I should hide some of these menus. Sorry. Let me do that. So I have the color right for my MasterCard sample, okay? But the font color of my items don't look all that good. So I can again go back to the example, highlight a particular menu option, inspect, and then I can see what the CSS for this guy looks like. All right. Now, the sites are different. I know that the site is responsive, but it doesn't mean necessarily that this site uses Bootstrap. It may be using a customized, a custom template or completely built by hand and whatnot. So sometimes you need to see what the setup is, not necessarily copy the whole CSS and assume that this is going to work. For example, this nav dash dash corporate, this is native to MasterCard. This has nothing to do with Bootstrap. Okay, so I can go back to my site and hover over my own menu option, inspect, and I can see which classes is used. So the color that I have, the area that's defining the color of the font is this guy, okay? So I can copy. Is it too small? Okay, so I can copy that, go back to my CSS editor, throw that in there, and say, okay, instead of black, I want a white, okay? And I know that white in CSS is FFF. Can go, come back here, hit refresh, and my fonts are now white. All right, again, there are some other things that I need to worry about here. I'll show how to get this done instead of having hover um, blue. We can have it another color. Maybe we could use the orange color from MasterCard. Then I can say, okay, let's pick the orange color for this guy. Which color is that? So it's F38B00. Okay, so come back to my site, go back to my CSS file. I'll throw this in here, and I know, just because I know a little bit about CSS, that in order to color that link or the area around, I have to do hover, right? And I have to throw the color that I want. Now, I don't want to color code the link itself. I want to color code the box surrounding the link, right? So I can, again, hit inspect and see what this object is. It is indeed the link, so my bad. We want to color code the link. So let's hop back to MasterCard and just retrieve that orange color again because I forgot what it was. All right, so I'll copy this entry, go back to my CSS, put that in there, and then I can save. Update, and again, it was the box. I was right, not the link. So I colored the link and not the box. So as you can see, the property for the box is background color, and I colored the font. You can see it down. It was showing it in a minute ago down here. So let's go back to the CSS. I'm going to change this from color to background color. Save. Refresh, and now it looks somewhat decent. All right. So now I want to replace my logo. I can come back here, inspect the logo from MasterCard. Now, I do not want to save this on my website today, just to save us time. So I'm going to copy the whole path of this existing image and reference this image in my website. Kids, don't try this at home. If you're doing this live, make sure you upload the image to your website because you don't want to risk it disappearing. But for the sake of time, we're going to do it. We're going to just add a reference here. All right, go back to the code. I'll throw it to the source here. I'm not sure, maybe I should play with the image size. Let's see what MasterCard is doing on their end. Let's see how they are formatting this image. So it's 49 by 30. Does everybody see that, the setting there? Okay, so I can go back to my site, and I think 49 by 30 would be correct. Save. Now it looks close to it, not quite perfect, but then we can play again with a little bit more CSS. And I know a lot of folks are wondering, well, I was hoping that this would be more citizen developer driven. Unfortunately, if you're dealing with branding, you can do your best to get a lot of stuff done without having to resort to code, but it will tap into CSS code for sure. So what I'm gonna do here is margin top. I'll put 10 pixels, and hopefully that's gonna be enough. All right, so that's our header. I mean, not bad for like a POC type of approach, right? This is not yet live, and usually, depending on the size of your customers, if they are somewhat of a big size, they will provide you all the CSS. You won't need to do it, okay? But this is mostly for maybe a site that you do on your own, or if you're doing a POC, okay? All right, my navigation menus looks okay, although there was some, there's some stuff still that I would need to change. Not going to worry about it today, but let's move on to the body of the site, okay? On this example, we have like a scroller. We could reproduce the scroller. If we inspect, we can see what they are using to get it done. And we can copy some of these objects and reproduce the CSS on our site. But I know that Bootstrap already has an image carousel, so I can look for it online. Bootstrap carousel example. And we want a v3. Okay, so let's see if we can tap into some of these guys. I want a vanilla one. I don't want anything super complex. Where's my v3? Let's see if this guy's v3. All right, so we can again inspect the code. My machine is super slow, sorry folks. Again, let me kill video. Come on. I'm so sorry, this thing is too slow. Maybe it's WC3. Okay, so let me see if I can copy this. If you copy element, it will copy not only the top div, but everything within it. Now, we may have some trouble with the images because the images I think live within a W3 schools domain, but we'll try to get something done here nonetheless. I'm gonna go to Studio, then navigate to the home page. Then I can click on the area that I want to play, expand the code, and throw my carousel down here. Folks who are not as familiar with HTML, you can add comments if you don't want to kind of get lost in the content that you have built versus the content that was shipped through with portals. So you can do things like this, my carousel or whatever comment you feel appropriate to your implementation, just so you can find your things there. So I have my carousel landing here. Notice that the images are not going to work because this is a relative path. So LA will not show up, Chicago will not show up, but we can kind of game it a little bit. If you're doing this as an example, we can go back um, to the site and then trying to inspect the image and see the full path of this particular image. So right here, I can open in a new tab and kind of see. So the full path is this, right? So if I'm really lazy on this example and I don't want to upload my images, I can just refer to their path. And again, I mean, if you're doing this for real, you can upload and use image references here to files that exist in your instance. All right, so in there, save, and now I have my carousel. Let me refresh the site. There you go. Now you say, Victor, I don't like this. It's taking full length of the page. I want it smaller. I want it to be kind of centered and just use the area of the page that will be most commonly used by my end users. No problem there. You can go back to your source code editor. Then you can create a div and use a class called content. Okay. And then I'm going to create the closing div here so that I don't get lost. I will copy this and put it all the way at the end of my carousel. Okay. You notice that when I hit save, if I did this correctly, my carousel should be within the boundaries of my content. Sorry, the class is not content, it's container. Sorry about that. All right, so now it looks nice. So now my carousel is contained here, and it looks somewhat decent. Any questions? Mary, go for it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So obviously not very low on the citizen developer side. Whenever you were adding that element, right? So you copied that element from the carousel element and put it in the source code. Does the plate, so talk to me about the placement. You put it up at the top, and obviously it showed up at the top of the page. If you were to put it towards the middle of there, then it would be in the middle of the page. I'm assuming where you placed it obviously is important, correct? Or
it is. If I go back to Studio, and if we are to get this whole container area ending here.
And that's the whole carousel container thing that we copied, that whole element.
and we throw it, I don't know, right in the middle here. Then carousel will be displayed all the way down.
Okay.
Yeah. What I suggest we do is, I mean, when I was referring to the structure of the page, you can't start outlining blocks to your page before you add the contents within the site itself. So I'll give you an example. I think we did one last time, but we'll look into that again. You can refer to components when you create the sections, or you can kind of draft in a piece of paper and try to understand what it would look like for you before you start creating the sections, right? But what we are playing with here is that combination of the div class called col dash lg dash a number. And let me see if I can draw uh, here. Maybe I should draw. Uh, so
That makes a lot of sense to me, though. Honestly, I just was wondering, like, why are you putting it up at the top? Is that because, like, you would get an error if you put it somewhere else, or is it placement wise? And so it is placement wise. And then whenever you moved it in the middle, I saw also that you had like a space, right? Like it looked like you just had one space. Can you have more than one space? Do you have to have a space? Again, is the space like an actual space on the page? And I'm sure that these are like super basic questions, but I don't know the answer to them. So I'd like to know.
No, those are good questions nonetheless, and I think it's important at this stage. Yeah, I put it up top just as a pointer to what this page looks like for the carousel.
Mhm.
That's why I landed there. But again, if there were other carousel images in other areas, we would move to the other areas.
Okay.
For sure, for sure. Again, the whole game about structure is essentially this is your canvas, right? When you're dealing with portals, you you don't really get to control much of what happens in the header, which is this area. You can play with the template, if you will, and also the footer. On the footer, you have a template there that you can mess with, right? But everything that's in this area here is fair game. So it's like a canvas for you to paint, right? And what I mean by that is, depending on how your page looks like or what the requirement is, I'd say start by creating the container areas before you put content in. If the page you're trying to reproduce has a right sidebar, create a container for this sidebar first. Then if it's got another header on the side, the way to do it is you create sidebar with, I'd say, 4 positions, right? Then you create this with 8 positions. Then you will now have 12 in total, right? Again, Bootstrap is based on that 12 position grid. So we start composing that way, and then you can bring the HTML to this, and we'll look into strategies on how we build content, how we make your life easier as a developer later on. But now we are laying that foundation on how do I create these structures? How do I go about creating displacements on my page? So as a final exercise, I'm gonna create a page that kind of looks like this, just the bare bones, and I think it will make sense. On this example, I just asked for a blank page. It gave me an area with 12 positions, right? That's this block here. But let's say that I wanna three blocks, and the block on the far left, I want it to be smaller than the other two, right? So what I do is I have 12. I'll make this first block 3. Okay, then I can copy this guy, throw it in here, and reuse the other ones for other components. Now I need to make sure that the total sum of the 3 blocks totals 12. So let's do what we do here, 4 and 4. And we miss one spot. Then we can make this guy 5 maybe, or even I can make this first one 2 and then do 2 5s. I'll go ahead and save. You see, now I have this block, this one, and that one in my site. Okay, so if the request was to land that carousel on this block only, then I can go back to the home page just so that I can copy content. I will open the code and then scroll down to find my carousel. It's in this div here. Copy it. Okay. Go back to the page I created that I have not given a name. Sorry. Then again, open the content here, and then I'm gonna throw my carousel within that block. I can organize it so that it's nicely indented. Sorry. Tab, save, and now my carousel is contained within that div. Okay, so let's browse and see. But that's how I would advise you to go about implementing pages. Always start with the layout, and then you can bring content. And we see that we can bring different content within different areas, even forms in Dynamics. We can bring to different areas, so on and so forth. All right. We are past time, but I want to leave the mic open until 1 and see if folks have additional questions, comments, concerns. Let's look at the chat and see. Is it possible to add different footers for different pages? You'd have to code it yourself to get to that. There is a possibility, but then you have to code the templates to display different footers. Okay, Suta, I think. Does anybody else have any other questions? No? All right. Before we go today, I want to let you know that I'll start featuring you weekly when I do my posts online, if you're okay with it. So whatever screenshots you have of the work that you're doing, that you feel proud of, you wanna share, send it my way. We'll make sure that you get the recognition. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you next week. Oh, I'm gonna send you an email with a solution file for Dataverge that's gonna be used in the next lesson. I think we're gonna look at entity forms, entity views, and whatnot next week. So I'll send you a solution file for you to install in your environment if you think it's appropriate. Then we're gonna look at examples from that solution file as we build our entity forms, views, etc. All right. Well, thanks again. Have a great weekend, and keep on shining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye. Take care.